You guts that food, you big cat. So is your flipping tail. You big cat now, honey? Anyway, in an attempt to sort of show you some of my old videos and new, I might as well talk about a basic setup of a solar system. You have about 3 different kinds of panels you can choose from. Monocrystalline, which are the most common sort for this country. Polycrystalline, which are the ones that sort of have a speckled look like galvanizing. And amorphous. Now, I have an amorphous one's right in front of me. They're very reflective. So reflective it's ridiculous. These are sometimes called thin film. Oh, so reflective, you can't even get a decent look at it. They're much the same ones as on your calculator. I think most of your little solar lights like this have amorphous, and a lot of your cheaper ones that are not sort of a panel with an aluminium frame around it, but more so like a black plastic case, and they're in front of the case. That's generally your amorphous. They tend to be a sort of, well, much the same colour as sort of like old audio tape, maybe even VCR tape, and very thin lines through them. And they tend to be just one big, ginormous panel. Your monocrystalline panels are your best for size. Your polycrystalline panels aren't much worse. You need those about 15% larger for the same amount of wattage for area. Your amorphous, they're quite a step different from the other two. They have the ability to pick up in low light levels. In other words, cloudy days, they will still give you something, quite a lot more than what a polycrystalline or monocrystalline panel will. Having said that, they need to be about 2.5 to 3 times the size for the same amount of wattage. They're not the sort of thing you'd want to have in a boat or a motorhome or something like that where you may be limited for size. Another thing is, you get your ones that are like your crappy harbour freight ones, and your ones that they have for cars that they put on the dashboard and plug into a cigarette lighter or whatever to keep the battery topped up for vehicles that aren't used often. They might be all right without any hail or anything, but most solar panels are made for hail that's 1 inch in diameter to fall on it. To achieve that same strength for the amorphous ones, to give you a panel that you can mount on your roof or basically outside, that's not a cheap piece of shit in a black plastic case, but one that's, you know, got to take a few hailstones once in a while. The weight of them is absolutely terrible because of, I believe they use some sort of a glass, proper glass, and it's like a hardened glass, and by hell they are heavy. Your little ones won't be though, your little harbour freight ones in your black plastic case where you got, you know, some sort of a polyethylene or polypropylene black case that they're in. They won't be that heavy, but your proper ones that can withstand hailstones, that are supposed to be mounted on a roof or out on a frame or whatever, they will be shockingly heavy. See, there's some sort of, I forget now, but basically these panels like this, that's the sort of plastic that has almost no thermal expansion or something along those lines, so it doesn't break any of the little joins and any of the cables. I did know what it's called. a four-letter abbreviation, and you almost never see it in any other usage except solar panels. But to get that same strength, you know, that you need to have for amorphous panels, the weight is astronomical. The other thing is the longevity. A lot of these ones, your cheaper ones, your Harbour Freight ones and whatnot, their lifespan, I'm not joking, you're only looking about 5 years and they'll be shit. 7 years and they'll be absolutely junk. But they're only built to last about 5 years. More recently, they have changed things a little bit to build ones that have got, you know, 15 and 25 year warranties that will actually last the distance. But a lot of your older amorphous panels, or your cheaper ones, you know, 5 years and you'll be chucking them out. Whereas things like that, that's got 25 year warranty on it, as has that, as has the other ones over there. And, you know, they will last the distance. But, you know, you get these sort of dull days in winter, don't expect to really generate anything. I might as well show you my little rig here. This is my little semi-portable one. It's not going to be taken in much. I have found that that cable is a bit thin and a bit too long. That's actually off a Chinese vacuum cleaner. And also I don't really have the angle, like that one's got the angle out there, nice angle. That one's flat. It's not doing it any favours at all, especially this skinny little cable. If you set up any stuff, try to, if you need any length, make it be the cables from the panel to your charge controller. You want the distance between your charge controller and your battery and inverter, which I don't have in this one, to be as short as possible and nice and heavy and thick, and you need reasonable enough cables, not shit ones like this, but that's only a small panel anyway. If you're using 120 watt panels, 80 watt panels, something decent size, you want decent cables to run along those lines. And they have solar panel cable that you can buy in electronic stores, and it's basically the same stuff that I don't think this is good enough to be able to... Oh yeah, you can see the little black wires coming down from the panel there. You might be able to, yeah, black box on the back of the panel and two little wires coming down. That's the junction box, and that's the wires that go down into the charge controller. That one out there has actually got the same charge controller as this. And these are great little things because it's actually got a screen. My big one for my house doesn't have a screen. It's got computer logging, but I don't have the software and I don't have the magical plug that goes in the charge controller to be able to do computer logging. Here we're at absorb charge. It's basically full. It's as simple as that. Gives us the battery voltage and the PV voltage, which is sort of low, but the clouds are over, and almost no current. And today's amount that I pulled in, which is basically nothing in amp hours, and last 1 day, and last 2 days. Anyway, that's your nice kind, your one with your little screen on it, and it's great if you can get that, but there's something you got to watch with some of these. This one here is really built for sealed batteries. I can change it for unsealed batteries. It is so much bloody baloney with what I've got to go through in bad description that's been sort of, you know, bad English conversion from Chinese. Well, I don't know if it's a bad English conversion from Chinese because I believe this is designed in a Western country, but let me tell you, it's not terribly understandable, and it's a very, very long drawn-out process to change this into the mode for your standard wet-type batteries that you got your little caps on. And this is sort of more built for sealed batteries. Most of them are sort of built for unsealed batteries that have got your caps on the top. And there's a few of them that are actually built for both. And I've got a tiny little one that's got no screen, and hell, it hasn't even got any blinking LEDs. And it's got an extra cable. And if you have a sealed one, I think it is, you attach this extra cable to the negative, and if you don't, then you take that cable off the negative and just leave it hanging there, sort of thing. And that'll discern if it should charge at a different rate, because these, your absorb charge and your float charge, which basically means it's completely full, will be lower voltages than you'll have for your ones with the caps on it, which are your wet type. Oh, there we go. We hit float. When you hit absorb, I think you're 95% full. And then when you hit float, you are actually completely full. And there we go, she's changed into not blinking. That don't get a little bit worried, as you may, if the sun goes down and you suddenly notice the battery voltage is dropping and the panel voltage is dropping, because, well, basically, as the sun goes down, your magical, well, it's 13.8 now, it was shown 14.3 before, 19.5, that's commonly what it is. Anything from 18.5 to sort of 20 is what you can expect, volts-wise, from a panel that's not under load, or I think not under load. I think this is what it's showing us as not under load. Yeah, and from memory, when I've tested them just sitting outside, just with a panel and a multimeter, yeah, under load, I don't exactly know. Not under load, you're looking at 18.5 to 20 volts. And but all of a sudden this battery state will go back down to, you know, not being $1 million, maybe blinking green or something like that, not solid green, as the sun goes down. And if you then start to use it after the sun goes down, then it will probably go into I think it's a blinking red, as you start to use it after the sun goes down. And this is back up to 9.5 volts coming through the panel, but just before when we looked it was only 16.8, which may be why it was sort of at absorb. But don't hit the panics if you haven't used it and it's gone from float down to absorb, and then the battery voltage looks like it's dropping like a stone, because that's what always happens every time the sun goes down. And then you get other people who like to call themselves experts and haven't realised that, and then get in a big flap when their batteries are 12.5 volts. Anyway, never mind that. I'm going to show you some. Got to do a quick count here. Oh, we've got sheep. I think it's about 5 or 6 systems I've got. I've got one over there. That one there is 2. 3 the fridge, 4 the house, and 5 is the other one I've got. The big battery in the bathroom that the water pump is hooked onto. It's got the tiny little 20-watt panel because it doesn't basically get used very much. Just hang on a second here. Alrighty. This is me main house one. Oh. In a minute. There we go. There's some little spider in here or something. Cats used to sneak into this when they used to play out here when they were kittens. I didn't really like that. I don't know if you can see it, but right there is a little kitty print from Black Kitty when she was little. Another one there that's not looking very good. This is 100 amp hour battery. This is cap ones, as you can see, 100 amp hour. This is your wet type. This is basic run-of-the-mill frickin' horse shit, basically. These are so crap it's not funny in regards to being expensive batteries. They're not at all. They're made in Thailand. You're supposed to import them over and whack your own brand name on it. Yes, that's right, they are a no-name brand. And there is the magical LD200 Selectronics inverter. And of course, the bizarre-looking Australian plugs. I used to just have that yellow one plugged straight in, and I thought, stuff it, what if I want to use something out here? And I'm seriously thinking this summer, probably sleeping right here. And it might not, I might end up under the trees or something, and it, you know, could whack a cord in, have a desk fan out there, so keep yourself cool. Such an effort to try and cool the house once it's heated up. I'm failing to see a point of why I should deliberately try and sleep in a hot house. So I'm thinking of just sleeping outside. But anyway, getting off the subject. As you can see there, positive and negative lines going to the inverter. That's got heat fins at the back. Some of them have got fans instead. But yeah, that's obviously reasonably heavy enough and short enough lines. And these ones here, that's just more of the same solar cable that I bought in bulk that will hook back to the other one. These are looking a little bit dirty. You got to understand, this is outside, you know. It's just looking mowed the grass here and stuff, you know. And there's my charge controller with a bloody shitload of heat fins. That's actually a 30 amp one. And this is a smidgen off, I think it's 13.96 amps or something, technically, but it's basically 14 amps I've got here. Yeah. So anyway, some of these, this one's a shit one. In regards to being able to measure it, I've got to use a little dipstick thing which sort of lines up to all this. I had to measure all the height of the caps and everything to get it, basically a dipstick to work out what level these are at. With the other one that I've got over there in the fridge, it's basically, you've got like it's like a car, you've got like a little funnel looking thing when you take these off, and you just fill it to the bottom of the funnel piece and then you're all right. And yes, I am doing things incorrectly. I'm using a charge controller for a sealed battery with an unsealed battery on that, which probably won't really help the life of the battery at all. But I couldn't be stuffed to go through the juggernaut that I've got to go through to sort it all out. So there you can get all arced up and say I'm not doing it right. I frankly don't give a shit. It is that much effort pressing all these blooming dip switches internally and all this sort of stuff to change it over. I just could not be bothered. But with this one, that's your little excess line that I've got. I just have a cigarette lighter plug with that. Charge the tablet off that. These are your main lines. As you can see, they're not exactly skinny. It is highly recommended if you're going to run heavy lines for a distance. Either have them really close side by side or wrap them around each other. And actually the fridge manual suggested, if you're going to have the fridge in the back of your vehicle, to run lines from your battery in your car to the back of your vehicle coiled like that, well, twisted together. I don't know if we'll get a good look at this battery. And the wind is starting to annoy things. Yeah. Oh, there you can see, yeah. That's your standardised green interstate. There's basically, you'll see the two lumps there. It's like three caps in one big lump that you pull off, and then the other three caps in one lump. And that's sort of effectively the same as taking off individual caps, but it's a lot quicker to do. These crap ones, by the way, tend to, really go through the water, whereas the interstate one doesn't at all. But then again, the interstate one doesn't need as much recharging because it doesn't get flattened as much. And that could have something to do with it as well. I think it might have a lot to do with the fact that one's made in America and the other one's made in cheap shitville, Thailand. I think that might have a lot to do with it. A lot of it is just connecting positive to positive and negative to negative with these boxes. It's as simple as that. You want to make sure that your inverter is turned off before you connect the bloody thing. That's an intelligent idea. You also want to be... don't fidget and fiddle around as you're trying to hook the battery to the charge controller. That's generally speaking what should be done, is you should hook the battery and charge controller together first. Then, and same thing with the inverter around that same time if you're hooking an inverter up. Then, you cover these in cardboard or blankets, which is my preferred option, and then you hook the wires up. Or you can just hook the wires on at night, which isn't a terribly stupid idea either. And yeah, basically, yeah, that's pretty much how you hook them up. What I'm trying to get the point of here is telling you that if there is power coming through the panels and you hook it to a battery, sure as eggs, that charge controller will want to charge up the battery that's been sitting there. Or it'll be back at its rest voltage of, say, 12.6 volts for your wet type. Or somewhere around there, 12.7, something like that. And, of course, all of a sudden it'll want to bring it up to 14.4, somewhere around there. And as you hook that on, all of a sudden you've got that charge controller trying to draw that amperage. It's like as though the panels are going to be under load straight away because the charge controller is trying to lift the voltage of the battery. If it's been sitting for a while, well, of course it's got to top it off and all that. So all of a sudden, it's got to lift the voltage. So all of a sudden, these are under load as soon as they're hooked on. And as a result, you'll have sparks jump between your charge controller and your panels. It might not hurt your panels. It quite possibly could hurt your charge controller with a sudden surge, even though the stupid thing is trying to draw that power itself anyway. It, might affect it. But it's also not good for connections and fittings to have sparks jumping and have like smoke marks. It's not good. So that's one thing I recommend. Always have something over it before you do it. With my other one too, right here, by the way, that's a refrigeration compressor. You wouldn't believe it. Big cool room one. I think that's seized and the other one works all right. Getting off the topic here. With the other little banger, what are you doing in there, kitty? I actually have a switch, and that's because I can pull the plug on this one here. I'll go back to it and we'll have another look. This is just your El Crapo Harbour Freight style plug. And there is my switch. And I turn the switch off, then I put the plug together, and then I turn the switch back on. The switch is then rewired into the bottom of your PV positive. So you get your positive and negative for your panel and for your battery and for your DC load. All this business of using your DC load one, I'll tell you a little secret. Bloody forget it. They are so low rated, it's ridiculous. I'm not joking. You can't even run a decent amount of lights through that DC load Honestly, I never bother with it, but they are insistent on manufacturing them with that DC load anyway. And if you all say, oh, that's all stupid, you should use it, the rating is so freaking piss poor, you can barely run anything through the blasted DC load connections. But, yes, some manufacturers just don't help themselves. In fact, I know we're going to get in here. Oh, geez, well lit in here. I don't know why I even bother, but these are just a few little 6-volt batteries. Oh, there's those magical shitbox shower pumps. Bloody thing, one of these is seasoned. It hasn't even been used, that one there. Just seized solid. Yes. Yes, here we go. PV positive and negative, battery positive and negative, and load. Now this one is, there's one like this and there's another one that's looks the same and it's completely waterproof. What they actually do is inside it, all the circuitry, they test it, and after it tests as being, working, they sink the whole lot in epoxy, like as in they pour in epoxy and the whole lot sealed solid. And you can actually use, it's not this one, but it's one that has the same out of box and just a different catalogue number on boats because it's completely sealed. And I got it wrong what I was saying about the sealed battery needing extra lead. Wet type battery, you probably can't see that properly there. Wet type battery, that lead there, I forget what the little manual says, but you either hook it to, I think you hook it to the negative of the battery, and that tells it it's a wet type battery as opposed to a sealed, and if it's sealed, well, you just leave it off like this is. And that's a little crappy 10 watt panel, but I do know this actually charges because I had a very badly screwed up battery that was bubbling, and when the sun had come out it would actually start to bubble a little bit and you could hear it bubbling, and you couldn't hear it bubbling when the sun went down. So this thing is obviously working. That's another little way. If you don't have any multimeter, TR won't tell you this one, if you don't have any multimeter and you really want to find out if a solar system is trying to charge, if everything's hooked up right, go and get the nastiest, gnarliest old piece of shit car battery you can find, top the water up in it to the correct level, and then hook it on, and then take your blanket or your bit of cardboard or whatever off your panel and come in and listen closely, and you will be able to hear the bastard bubbling. That's proof that she's wired up correctly and it's trying to charge it. Well, just so long as you got your positive and negative correctly, then yeah, it's proof that your charge controller is actually trying to do its job. I can't guarantee that it's perfect with that method, but I can guarantee that at least it's trying to put power into the battery. Some of them may stuff up and not regulate at all, and it'll be putting too much electricity into the battery. I can't guarantee it won't be doing that. But at least you know that you've got the damn panels hooked up correctly and it is trying to put power into the battery if your crap battery starts bubbling. And that's a little trick that old TR would never tell you. This one is bizarre. When it comes to the load, it's supposed to be used for lights, and it's got these, I forget how you change it again. I don't know if there's, I don't think you can get this one open, so I don't think there's dipsticks or anything like that. There might be some weird way you got to do something, and you've got like 4 different modes so that it comes on at night and then goes out the middle of the night and then comes on early in the morning again, is one way. And there's another way that it goes all night for a certain amount of hours and then it goes only at the early hours of the morning. There's 4 different programmed in times that it will turn your load on and off with this one, and it's just basically used for trying to light places at night for security purposes. and yeah, it's quite a little explanation in the manual for this one of all the different lighting timing things that'll come on with this load. And you're not supposed to generally just put your normal load that you want to use day to day, switch on and off as you feel like it with this one, because it works out when the night is by when the power stops coming through the panel, and then it says, okay, so many hours after it stops coming through the panel, then we're going to turn these on or off or whatever. And it's quite a bizarre little thing, but you can't just use these for any old load during the day, because you won't actually get power out of these during the day. Once again, you know, another reason why I don't even bother with the load leads on these, because it's, you know, horses for courses, and every manufacturer probably has a different thing, but you'll know one thing for certain: you will not get the amperage that's worth even bothering with out of these load cables, out of any of the ones that are on any charge controllers. Except for maybe the monster systems made for houses and whatnot. Anyway, I've got to get out of here before I destroy this bloody door. Oh, yeah. Anyway, I have access to quite a number of different plugs and whatnot. And this is all my lights. That's all the thing. Oh, you can't have too many things all running off the one lead, otherwise you'll blow things up. That's a little idea they perpetuate to stop the dickheads burning out cables. I'm not a dickhead. I know what my wattage loads are for everything. Everything. And if you... trust me, all this is rated at 2,500 watts. And I can get a maximum of 250 watts out of that inverter. So we've only got 1/10 what it's loaded at. But that's not all. I've got some more plugs inside there as well. Actually, I've got my phone charging off the inverter, which I might as well show you. This is my other phone with a 320 by whatever it is, 280 pixelation. Yeah, like a keyboard. What's we got here? Oh yeah, I might as well show you the lines that a little bit long. The longer you go and the thinner they are when you go there, and yeah, you're probably right, they probably should be coiled together, but they're sort of close enough together. It's this thing of having them close enough together, it's to do with electromagnetic interference, apparently. This has been told to me by a dude who makes really, really, really big systems and sells inverters that are thousands and thousands of dollars each. And I used to have this shitty Chinese one plugged into that plug there. And yeah, I know it looks like a friggin' mess, so what? It was over the top of this here, which is where your out vent is for your evaporative cooler sitting over there. And that one you can see, the black thing you see on top, that's the big one I charge all the Makita batteries off. That's a big one that'll do 4 batteries at once. Surprise, surprise, I can run it off the solar system without an issue. I've got the tablet. I'm going to stop tripping over my bed here. And the tablet there, just charging up. That's off the little, the other one lower down. In case I have any inverter problems, which I don't now, I've got a Selectronics, which are apparently the Rolls-Royce of inverters. I say to some people, I've tried it a few times actually, go to one of these off-grid guys at some show setting up RVs off-grid or whatever, and say, yeah, what's the best inverter you can buy? Oh, well, the Rolls-Royce is a Selectronics, and I don't even tell them what I've got. And yeah, I've got a Selectronics. But back in the day when this heap of Chinese shit was basically failing at 31.5 degrees Celsius or 88 Fahrenheit, it would start playing up like a bitch. The fan wouldn't stop. It'd be under stress with one light on, and then you'd turn on 90 watts of load on this thing that's supposed to be, 180 watts, and then that was about it. She was game over. She'd just blooming cut out. Little alarm go off. because it couldn't handle the 90 watts. In those days, I got myself a shitty little 12 volt fan, so I had some fan for summer because I was fearing this thing was not gonna. It started failing in the spring, and so I had to get serious, and I got the Selectronics inverter. That one you see plugged up there, that's my LED light. One of these days I've got to get around and put a bloody fuse on that thing, because I don't like it the way it is without a fuse. Yeah. So anyway, that gives me cigarette lighter plugs inside my room to charge up things and to plug in the LED lights into. Little one for my laptop. Little lead that goes back into all that. One day I'll show you how to actually find your wattage ratings and all that and work it all out, but we'll leave that for another video because this one will end up a bloody hour long if I do that. Let's have a look. I don't know if we're gonna... Compact fluorescent lights. This room's good. I've got the... Hang on, I'll show you all the lights. There's my ones for the LEDs. There's a little LED one. That's when it's winter or I've got to be a tight ass for power because I'm using the slow cooker or whatever. And there's me, compact fluoro. You get the idea. Now, it's sort of hard to see it. You may not see it at all. I'm going to stuff this. I'm going to go get a torch and show you this one. Alrighty. I notice all the massive amount of blooming green bottles sort of start to thin out on them. That's detergent. I had a bit of a sock up and I have more detergent than I'm going to use in friggin' years, but here's my other one. Oh yeah! Oh, this is a shit of a thing trying to climb through this. There we go. Camo Germany. You've got two little LEDs. One of them there on the right says charging and the other one says battery full. And you can see it's charging. And it's this one sort of switches between the two because, well, you know, when it stops charging, all of a sudden it looks like the battery's flat again, so then it tries to start charging again and it'll stay all right for a while. And then before long it decides it's dropped too much and tries to charge it again, because this is actually an old tractor battery that's a piece of shit basically. And you see I have some reasonable lines there which are more solar cable lines. They go up to, oh god, the switch there which goes to the 12 volt water pump for the wood hot water system. And yeah, and that might be a Coleman hot water on demand, just possibly, which is what gets used most of the time. But this one's a very simple old one. This camo thing, it only cost me like $30, 35. You can see there it's got the battery, positive and negative, and solar cell, positive and negative. And there's no load feature or anything on that. It's very simple. They have a requirement that you put a fuse, and I have an old car connector which the fuse magically fits perfectly into. It goes down to the battery, and as well as having a fuse, they also have a requirement that your cables from your charge controller to your battery are less than 2 meters. And your big orange one you see there is a dirty big old 15 amp 240 volt cable. It goes under those ones there and up and away outside to the little 20 watt one that is stuck on the front of this bit of cement sheet. And there you go. That's just a few basic solar systems and all that. I really suggest that you learn how to solder, and I'm not talking big ass bloody soldering iron with plumber's flux. If you use plumber's flux to solder, first of all, it's the wrong flux, and it'll just acid eat everything out. Acidically eat the shit out of your connections, and all your connections will fuck up because of the acid in that flux, or alkaline, or whatever the hell it is, that is basically eating away your connections slowly after you make them. Coupled to that, the fact you've got some sort of an acid plus heat plus lead in the solder, and you may possibly be causing little power surges without even knowing it. That's a theory, and I can't guarantee that. But all the same, I can guarantee that it is a stupid idea to use plumber's flux for any electronic soldering. You've got to use Rosen flux. And lo and behold, sitting right beside me is some solder that's really very thin. 60-40, 60% tin, 40% lead. And this one, although it doesn't say it on the packet, is Rosen core. Now there is about 5 lines, well at least for some of your bigger stuff like that, of Rosen flux going through the middle of this solder. So the flux is already built into the solder. So get yourself Rosen core flux at all costs. Learn to solder with that. It's a pain in the ass. If you don't do it quickly, you won't get it at all, because the Rosen flux will literally smoke off rather fast. It's got a nice smell to it that I'm almost addicted to, actually, from having been soldering since I was 13 years of age. And there's nothing like the smell of Rosen flux smoke up your nose in a cold morning. But anyway, it's like a greeny brown crystallized shit, and you'll see it on your connections, and you can scratch it off if you want. If you see great heaps of it, if you have a big heap of it, things won't stick if you got too much of it. And if you look at your thing and you've got a bit of copper or whatever that you've been soldering, and there's nothing but flux over the copper and no solder, scratch it off with a knife, like box cutters or whatever, and maybe give it a little bit of a rub with steel wool, not sandpaper, just steel wool, and have a go again. But you really need to learn to solder before you overheat the bejesus out of something expensive like a charge controller. Your larger charge controllers have all got your screw fittings, but still you want to solder the end of your wires to keep them from going green with copper corrosion. Just, tin them, as they call it, and then bang, put them in. And it's a great skill to have, and if you're no good at it, I recommend sticking to crimped car fittings and using those, and crimped plugs of various kinds. There's a certain plug they use for solar panels. It's got rubber O-rings in it, which you'll probably see when you buy a panel on the panel. If you get a decent sized one, they'll already be on the panel. And just stick to your automotive crimping tools if you can't solder. For the love of God, you don't want to sit there trying to melt solder 100 times over onto these leads of a $300 box, and then basically overheat the electronics inside and kill the bastard, because that is very doable. And I done that with just about everything I soldered when I was 13 years old. But now I'm really know my game when it comes to soldering like you wouldn't believe. So anyway, that's one of the big things you need to do before you go off grid, is learn to solder with Rosen core flux. And I think that should just about do it for this video.